Rain hammered the zinc roof as Nena sprinted barefoot through the muddy street, her wrapper clinging to her legs. Behind her, angry shouts echoed, her uncle's voice thick with rage. "Come back here, useless girl. You think you can waste my food and run?" She stumbled, fell to her knees, and clutched the small loaf of bread she'd bought for the neighbor's hungry child. Her palms bled, but she pushed herself up and kept running until the voices faded behind her. It was only when she reached the abandoned shed near the mechanic's yard that she let out a trembling sigh. She tore the loaf in half and handed the bigger piece to the thin boy waiting inside. "Here, Ibuka. Eat before your mother wakes." The boy's eyes widened. "But your uncle, he'll beat you again." Nena smiled weakly. "I've survived worse." That moment, muddy, breathless, defiant, was the beginning of everything. Umuaku town wasn't the kind of place where kindness went unnoticed. It was the kind of place where it was mocked. When people saw Nena, they saw her patched skirt, her tired eyes, her silence, and thought they saw weakness. Her uncle, Ikena, and his wife, Ibele, had taken her in after the fire that killed her parents 10 years ago. But what began as pity soon became punishment. She was maid, cook, errand girl, and sometimes target for their anger. "You think this house runs on pity?" Ibele hissed one evening as Nena washed dishes. "You're old enough to earn something. Tomorrow, you'll start hawking groundnuts by the junction." "Yes, Auntie," Nena whispered. That night, lying on her thin mat, she looked up at the cracked ceiling and whispered to herself, one day, I'll be free." But freedom wasn't easy for girls like her. The next morning, she stood by the roadside balancing a tray of roasted groundnuts. The air smelled of dust and petrol. Buses roared past, passengers shouting, hawkers chasing them with pure water and gala. Then she saw him. A man sitting by the roadside near the old palm tree. His clothes were torn, his beard rough, his eyes quiet. He looked like one of the beggars who drifted between the motor park and the bus stop. People passed him as if he were invisible, except Nena. She hesitated, then took a small nylon of groundnuts from her tray, knelt beside him, and said, "Here, you can have this." The man looked up slowly, surprised. "You're giving this for free?" Nena shrugged. "You look hungry. I don't have much, but—" He smiled faintly. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," she said, standing. "Just promise you won't sit here too long. The police don't like people begging near the park." He nodded, but didn't move. "What's your name?" "Nena." "Nice name." "Mine's Obina." She didn't know it then, but that moment, her small act of kindness, would change her life forever. Weeks passed. Every day, as Nena sold her groundnuts, she'd see Obina sitting quietly at the same spot, sometimes reading a worn notebook, sometimes just staring into space. He didn't beg. He never bothered anyone. One afternoon, when the sky was heavy with rain, she walked over again. "Obina, haven't you found work?" He chuckled softly. "Not yet. But I believe in timing. God's clock doesn't run like ours." "You talk like someone who's not worried," she said. He looked at her with calm eyes. "Worry doesn't solve hunger." They both laughed, a strange, quiet laughter that cut through the noise of the busy street. It became a habit. Nena bringing him leftover food, Obina offering her stories in return. He told her about dreams, about the power of forgiveness, about how sometimes life hides blessings in rags. "You sound like you've lived many lives," she once said. He smiled. "Maybe I have." What she didn't know was that Obina had indeed lived many lives, one as the son of a man her uncle betrayed. But that secret waited patiently, like a storm on the horizon. One evening, Nena returned home to find her uncle pacing the veranda, shouting into his phone. I said the money will come. Just give me one more week. He hung up and turned sharply. You, come here. Nena froze. Yes, uncle? He eyed her coldly. You think feeding beggars will bring you luck? I saw you near the park again. That's how useless girls end up pregnant. Ebele joined in. That boy you keep talking to, what's his name? Obinna? I heard he's homeless. He's just a friend, Nena whispered. Friend? You don't need friends. You need to bring money into this house. That night, they argued again. But this time, the shouting didn't end with threats. It ended with something worse. 2 days later, Ebele whispered something to Ikenna. The next morning, he called Nena to the sitting room. You're getting married. Nena froze. What? To who? To the man the chief found for you. He said he's a humble worker who wants a good woman. You're lucky someone even asked for your hand. Tears welled up. Uncle, please, I don't know him. I'm not ready. Ikenna slapped her. Do you think you have a choice? Ebele smirked. Pack your things. The wedding is in 2 days. The town buzzed with gossip. Can you imagine? Ikenna's niece, married off to a beggar. Others laughed. Maybe that's her destiny. Poverty marrying poverty. But the wedding was small and strange. No music, no friends, no joy. Just a few witnesses and the sound of the generator humming. When Obinna arrived, everyone gasped. He looked clean, but still poor. Simple white shirt, old shoes. He bowed respectfully. I will take care of her. Nena's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to run, to scream, to ask why. Him. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw no mockery, only kindness. She said the vows with trembling lips. That night, in their small rented room at the edge of town, silence filled the space. Nena sat on the bed, staring at the wall. Obinna sat by the door. You don't have to be afraid, he said softly. I know this wasn't your choice. She didn't answer. I'll sleep on the floor, he added, until you're comfortable. A tear rolled down her cheek. Why are you so kind to me? He smiled. Because kindness is the only thing I can afford. That line, so simple, so pure, was the first spark of something neither of them expected. Days turned into weeks. Nena cooked and cleaned, but Obinna always helped, washing plates or fetching water without being asked. He encouraged her to dream again, to write down ideas for a small business. Do you believe life can change just like that? She asked one morning as they shared breakfast. Obinna looked up from his plate. It already has. You just haven't noticed. She laughed. You sound like you know the future. Maybe I do, he said, smiling mysteriously. And though Nena didn't know it, every day Obinna disappeared into town, not to beg, but to meet with lawyers, to inspect hidden documents, to prepare for a truth that would soon shake both their worlds. If you're enjoying this story so far, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heart-touching African folktales that will move your soul. Your support helps stories like Nena's reach more people who need a little hope today. One night, the rain returned, heavy and wild. Nena sat by the window, watching lightning flash over the rooftops. Obinna, she whispered, why did you choose me? He looked up from where he sat, fixing an old wristwatch. Maybe because I saw something in you the world ignored. What's that? Strength, she laughed softly. Strength? I've only ever felt small. He shook his head. That's because you've been surviving so long, you forgot you were meant to live. She turned to the window again, heart fluttering. For the first time, she wondered if love could grow in the cracks of pain. But just as she began to believe in it, a shadow from the past returned, one that would rip open everything she thought she knew about her life, and about him. Obinna looked up from the wristwatch he'd been repairing, his face calm. Because when everyone looked away, you looked at me. You didn't see rags. You saw a person. Nena swallowed hard. But you were a stranger. He smiled faintly. Sometimes, strangers are just angels in disguise, or lessons we didn't know we needed. The room was silent except for the rain beating on the roof. Then suddenly, knock, knock, knock. They both turned. The door creaked open and Abeli's harsh voice cut through the darkness. Nena, come outside now. Nena's stomach twisted. Auntie? Abeli's eyes darted around the small room in disgust. So this is where you live? Poverty smells the same everywhere. Obinna stood. Good evening, Ma. Abeli waved her hand dismissively. Keep your greeting. Nena, your uncle needs money. You'll tell your husband to help, since you've married for love. Nena looked at Obinna, embarrassed. Auntie, he doesn't have... Abeli cut her off. Nonsense. You married him? You must help your family. Obinna's expression didn't change. Tell your husband I'll bring something by next week. Abeli's eyebrows shot up. You have money? Not yet, he said evenly. But I will. She scoffed, muttered something under her breath, and stormed off. When she was gone, Nena turned to him, anxious. You shouldn't have promised her that. My uncle will never stop asking. Obinna sighed. I know. But sometimes, it's easier to silence greed with patience than with anger. Nena blinked. You talk like someone who's seen the world. Maybe I've seen enough to know what breaks it, he replied softly. The next week brought whispers again, this time about Ikenna's debts. He had borrowed money from the local chief's men, gambling it away on a failed land deal. When the lenders came knocking, he was nowhere to be found. Late one evening, Nena and Obinna heard a pounding on their door. Open up! Obinna opened it slowly, revealing two large men in black jackets. One of them sneered, We're looking for Ikenna. You're his niece, right? Nena trembled. Yes, but tell your husband that your uncle owes Chief Emeka 200,000 naira. If he doesn't pay in 3 days, we'll collect it from you. They left before she could speak. She turned to Obinna, panicking. What are we going to do? We don't even have that kind of money. He walked toward her calmly, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Don't worry, I'll handle it. Handle it? How? He smiled gently. Trust me. For the first time in her life, Nena didn't question someone's promise. She believed it. The following morning, Obinna left early. He took a motorcycle to the outskirts of town, where a sleek black SUV waited by the roadside. A man in a suit stepped out and bowed slightly. Sir, everything is ready. The documents have been finalized, the man said. Good, Obinna replied, his voice shifting, firmer, commanding. No one must know until I say so, especially her. Yes, sir. And the foundation meeting? I'll attend tomorrow. After that, we move quietly. As he spoke, his eyes softened. Tell the board we'll release the funds anonymously. This isn't about publicity. It's about doing what's right. The man nodded and got back into the SUV. Obinna stood there for a long moment, looking at the town below, the chaos, the poverty, the same streets that once broke him. I was born here, he murmured to himself, and this is where it begins again. Back home, Nena waited anxiously. She hadn't eaten. Her hands shook as she cleaned the floor again and again. When Obinna returned by evening, her eyes were red. Where did you go? She asked. He smiled faintly. To make things right. Before she could respond, the same two debt collectors appeared again. But this time, their tone was different. Madam, we came to say your husband paid everything, one of them said, scratching his head. Chief Emeka said the matter is closed. Nena's mouth fell open. Paid? But how? Obinna only smiled and said, It's taken care of." When they left, she turned to him, astonished. "Obinna, what did you do?" He chuckled. "I told you to trust me." She blinked. "But where did you get that kind of money?" He leaned closer, his voice soft. "Some blessings don't announce themselves, Nena. They just appear when you least expect them." Her heart raced. For the first time, she began to see something in him. A mystery. A quiet strength that didn't fit the image of a poor man. Days passed, and things began to change subtly. Their small home looked cleaner, brighter. One morning, Obinna brought home a brand new sewing machine. Nena gasped. "Obinna, how did you afford this?" "I didn't buy it," he said with a teasing smile. "I invested in your dreams." "My dreams?" "Yes. You once said you wanted to design clothes, remember? Start now. Let the world see what your hands can create." She placed a trembling hand on the machine. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll try," he whispered. And she did. Within weeks, her design started drawing attention, first from neighbors, then from local boutiques. People began whispering about the girl who turned scraps into beauty. But with attention came suspicion. Eboli came again, curiosity in her voice. "So, your poor husband suddenly has money. Oh? Tell me, Nena, is he into rituals or what?" Nena glared at her for the first time in her life. "He works hard. That's all you need to know." Ebeli smirked. "We'll see." That night, Nena lay awake. "Obinna," she said quietly, "people are talking." "Let them," he replied. "Truth doesn't need defense." "But they're saying strange things, that you're not who you say you are." He looked at her, smiling gently. "And what do you think?" "I think you're hiding something." Silence filled the room. He took a deep breath. "Some truths can't be told too early, but when the time comes, you'll understand everything." She studied his face, the kindness, the calm, and realized she didn't fear him. But she did fear losing him. If you're still watching this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel for more emotional African love tales that teach life lessons you'll never forget. Your support keeps these stories alive. The next day brought chaos. Ikenna returned to town, bloodied and desperate. He stormed into their compound, shouting, "Where is that fake husband of yours, Nena?" Obinna came out calmly. "What's the matter?" "You think you can disgrace me, eh?" Ikenna yelled. "You paid my debt to make me look small." "I paid it because you owed it," Obinna said evenly. "No one forced you to borrow." "Liar. You think you're better than me now because my niece cooks for you?" He lunged at Obinna, but Obinna caught his wrist midair, firm and unshaken. His eyes hardened, an intensity Nena had never seen before. "Ikenna," he said quietly, "if I wanted to destroy you, I would have done it long ago. But I won't, because I know the truth about you." Ikenna froze. "What truth?" Obinna's voice dropped lower. 10 years ago, you betrayed my father. You sold his land to cover your debts and left him to die poor. You don't remember, do you?" The air went cold. Nena's heart stopped. "Uncle, is that true?" she whispered. Ikenna's face went pale. How do you know that?" "Because I'm his son," Obinna said, his voice trembling slightly now. "The man you stole from was my father, Chief Okoro." Nena gasped, tears flooding her eyes. Ikenna stumbled back, stammering. You're lying." "No," Obinna said softly. "I came back not for revenge, but for peace. Because your niece showed me what forgiveness looks like." Nena covered her mouth, trembling. "Obinna, all this time." He turned to her gently. "Now you understand why I said some truths come late." Nena staggered backward, her eyes wide, trying to process everything at once. Her uncle's trembling hands clutched the edge of the wall, as if the ground beneath him was collapsing. Your father was Chief Okoro?" Ikenna stammered. Obinna nodded slowly. "The same man you betrayed. You took his land papers and sold them to the highest bidder. You remember the fire that killed Nena's parents?" Nena's breath caught. "What about it?" Obinna's voice broke slightly. "That fire wasn't an accident. It started the night your uncle went to destroy the remaining documents. The night my father came to confront him." Ebele, who had been standing in the doorway, gasped, covering her mouth. "Ikenna, you told me it was a mistake." "It was!" Ikenna shouted, eyes darting between them. "I didn't mean for anyone to die." The rain outside intensified, thunder rolling like judgment itself. Nena shook her head, her tears spilling freely. "All this time, you watched me suffer in that house, knowing what you did?" she whispered. "You let me believe my parents died by fate." "Nena, listen," Ikenna began, but she stepped back. "No, Uncle. I've listened my whole life. Not anymore." Obinna placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, grounding her trembling frame. "He doesn't deserve your pain," he said softly. "You've already carried too much." Ikenna fell to his knees, voice cracking. "Obinna, please. I was desperate. I lost everything. I never meant to hurt anyone." Obinna's gaze stayed steady. "And yet you did. You destroyed 2 families to save yourself." The room went still, except for the rhythmic pounding of rain. Then Obinna spoke again, quietly but firmly. "But I didn't come back to destroy you, Ikenna. I came to end what my father's pain began. The land you stole has been recovered. It's now under a trust, one named after Nena's parents. Their memory will rebuild what your greed destroyed." Ikenna's face crumpled as the truth sank in. You're giving it back." "Yes," Obinna replied, "because forgiveness is the only thing strong enough to stop the curse of bitterness." Nena turned to him, eyes shimmering. "You'd do that for me?" He smiled faintly. "No, for us, for the life we both deserve." Ebele stepped forward hesitantly, tears now streaking her face. "Nena, I don't expect forgiveness. But if there's any chance to make things right, then start by telling the truth," Nena said, her voice trembling but resolute. And Ebele did. That night, she confessed everything. The lies, the manipulation, the years of cruelty, right there in front of half the compound who had gathered when they heard shouting. By morning, word had spread through Umuaku like wildfire. The beggar was a billionaire. The orphan was his queen, and the thieves were finally unmasked. But Obinna didn't bask in the spectacle. He simply held Nena's hand as they walked past the whispering neighbors, through the narrow streets where she once hawked ground nuts. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "What?" "Marrying me in secret. Living like this." He smiled, eyes gentle. "That life gave me what wealth never could. Someone who saw me, not my money." They reached the same palm tree where they'd first met. The early morning sun spilled gold over the wet road. Nena placed her palm on the trunk. "It feels like a dream," she murmured. "It's real," he said, taking her hand. "And it's just beginning." But fate wasn't done testing them yet. That evening, as Obinna prepared to return to the city for business, 2 black jeeps rolled into town. Nena frowned. "Are they from your company?" He squinted. "No, stay inside." Men in dark suits stepped out. One of them, tall, cold-eyed, called out, "Obinna Madu, you're under investigation for fraud and land misappropriation." Gasps erupted around them. "What?" Nena exclaimed. "That's impossible." The man flashed a badge. "You can come quietly, or we'll take you by force." Obinna raised his hands calmly. There must be a mistake. But the man's sneer said otherwise. "We'll see about that." As they handcuffed him, the crowd murmured. Ebele, standing by the gate, looked horrified. "This isn't right. He just exposed your uncle's crime. Why would they arrest him?" Nena's chest tightened. "Because someone's framing him." She ran after the convoy as they drove away, shouting, "Obinna, I'll find out the truth." That night, she didn't sleep. She sat with the documents Obinna had kept locked in a wooden box, contracts, signatures, land maps, and a single envelope addressed to her. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a letter in Obinna's handwriting. "My dearest Nena, if you are reading this, something has gone wrong. I knew this might happen. People who once betrayed my father still fear exposure. But whatever happens, don't lose faith. Go to the city. Find Barrister Okoye. He will help you finish what I started. Remember, love isn't tested by comfort, but by what survives the storm. Yours, always, Obinna." Tears soaked the paper as she pressed it to her heart. "I'll bring you home," she whispered. The next morning, she packed her things and boarded a bus to Enugu. Dust filled the air, but her resolve was stronger than fear. She arrived at Barrister Okoye's office by noon. The old lawyer looked up from his files. "You must be Mrs. Madu," he said kindly. "He told me about you." "Please," she said, voice shaking. "They took him. They said he stole land?" Okoye nodded. "Yes, it's a setup. The same people your uncle worked with 10 years ago, Chief Emeka and his partners. They're trying to silence your husband before the case reaches court." Her eyes widened. "Then we have to stop them," he nodded. "And we will. But we'll need proof. The original deed papers from the fire incident. They're hidden somewhere in your uncle's old house." Nena's jaw tightened. "Then I'll go back there myself." That night, under the cover of darkness, she returned to her uncle's compound. Her heart pounded as she entered the same house where she'd spent her childhood crying herself to sleep. The sitting room was dusty, the air heavy with silence. She moved toward the wall near the kitchen, the one place her father used to visit often before the fire. She knelt and began to pry open a loose plank. Her hand touched something, a metal box. She pulled it out and opened it to find old land deeds, photographs, and a burned envelope bearing the name Chief Okoro Madu. Her eyes filled with tears. "Papa," she whispered. Suddenly, a voice behind her. "So this is where you've been hiding, little mouse?" She turned. Ikenna stood in the doorway, face twisted with guilt and fear. "You came back to destroy me completely, huh?" "I came back to end your lies," she said, gripping the box. He lunged forward, grabbing her arm, but she fought back fiercely. "You'll never hurt anyone again," she cried. The box fell, paper scattering across the floor. Just then, headlights flashed through the window. Police cars. 2 officers stormed in. "Ikenna Okafor, you're under arrest for arson and document forgery." He froze. "Who told you?" Nena stepped forward, breathless. "Justice did." They dragged him out, and as he passed her, he whispered, "You're just like your mother, too kind for your own good." She looked at him one last time. "No, just strong enough to forgive you." Later that week, Obinna was released. The charges were dropped after Nena's evidence cleared his name. When he saw her standing outside the station, holding the same metal box, he broke into a weary smile. "You found it," he said. "And I found us again," she whispered. He took her in his arms, the noise of the city fading behind them. The next month, their story spread beyond Umuaku. Newspapers, social media, everywhere. People called it the Beggar's Redemption. But for them, it was simply a story of love surviving truth. At a quiet ceremony beneath the same palm tree, Obinna renewed his vows. "This time," he said softly, "not out of disguise, but out of destiny." Nena smiled through tears. "And I choose you, not for what you have, but for who you are." They held hands as the wind carried their laughter across the fields. If you believe love can heal even the deepest wounds, hit that subscribe button, like, and comment below. Tell us what forgiveness means to you. Your story might inspire someone else. Rain clouds parted over Umuaku, like the heavens themselves had waited for this day. The air smelled of wet earth and second chances. Nena and Obina stood beneath the same palm tree where it all began. Only now, the town gathered around them, not to mock, but to celebrate. Women ululated, children danced barefoot in the puddles, and elders whispered blessings under their breath. The girl who once hawked groundnuts by the roadside now stood in a flowing blue dress, her head high, her eyes bright with quiet pride. Beside her, Obina looked calm, no longer the man in rags, but still humble in spirit. Chief Emeka's former men had been arrested. The land Obina's father lost had been restored under the Okoro Madu Foundation, dedicated to rebuilding homes for widows, orphans, and families affected by corruption. What once destroyed 2 families had now become the seed for hundreds of new beginnings. But for Nena, the greatest victory wasn't the headlines or the money. It was peace. "Are you ready?" Obina asked softly, his fingers brushing hers. She smiled. "For what?" He looked out toward the open field. "To start again. Not as the orphan or the beggar's wife, but as partners." She chuckled. "You sound like you're proposing again." He turned to her, a teasing sparkle in his eyes. "Maybe I am. Nena Okafor Madu. Will you marry me again? This time, without secrets or fear?" Her breath caught. Around them, the crowd went quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause. "Yes," she whispered, smiling through tears. 1,000 times. "Yes." Cheers erupted. The church bells rang from the hill, and someone began singing, a slow, joyful tune that carried through the air like a promise fulfilled. For the first time, Nena didn't feel small. She felt seen. After the ceremony, they walked through the same market where she once sold groundnuts. The traders called out to her with laughter and blessings. "Nena, the small girl done turn Madam O. A beg, remember us for your next sewing job." She waved, laughing shyly, but Obina squeezed her hand. "You see? You've become a light here." She looked at him. "We both have." As they reached the edge of town, they stopped at a small, newly built structure. A workshop with the signboard, "Nena's Touch, Fashion with Purpose." It was funded by the foundation, but she'd designed every inch of it herself. Inside, young girls sat stitching fabric, learning, dreaming. "They said I was useless," Nena murmured. "But now I'm teaching others how to stand." Obina's eyes softened. "That's what power truly means. Not what we keep, but what we give." The evening sun spilled gold across their faces. She turned toward him. "And what about you? What will you do now that everything's restored?" He smiled faintly. "Use my father's wealth to build schools, hospitals. But this time, quietly. No more disguises. Just purpose." She grinned. "The humble billionaire," he laughed. "I prefer grateful husband." They shared a long, quiet look that spoke more than words ever could. The kind of look that says, "We made it through the fire, and we're still standing." But before the moment could settle, a young boy ran up breathlessly. "Uncle Obina! Madam Nena! Someone's at the gate asking for you!" They exchanged puzzled glances and followed the boy. At the gate stood an old woman in faded clothes, holding a small basket of palm fruits. When Nena saw her, her heart skipped. "Mama Chinyere," she gasped. The same widow she used to sneak food to when her uncle forbade it. The old woman smiled weakly. "My child, I came to bless you. They said you're helping women like me now. I just wanted to see it with my own eyes." Tears filled Nena's eyes as she knelt before her. Mama, if not for people like you who reminded me that kindness matters, I wouldn't be here today." The old woman cupped her face. "You gave when you had nothing. Now, God has given you more than you dreamed." Even Obina's voice trembled. "She's right," he said softly. "You're living proof that goodness never dies. It only waits for its season." The old woman smiled, blessing them both before she walked away into the fading light. That night, after everyone left, Nena and Obina sat outside their home, the sound of crickets filling the quiet. The moon shone bright, casting silver across the compound. "Do you ever think about the beginning?" she asked. He nodded. "Every day." "What would you have done if I hadn't given you those groundnuts?" He smiled. "Probably starved, or missed my destiny." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You really believe I changed your life?" He turned to her, his gaze deep and steady. "You didn't just change it, Nena. You saved it." Silence wrapped around them again, but it wasn't empty. It was peace, the kind earned by surviving storms together. After a while, Nena leaned her head on his shoulder. "Promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. No more pretending to be poor, rich, or anything else. Just us. Real. Simple." He kissed her forehead gently. "I promise. From now on, it's just love, truth, and purpose." She smiled, closing her eyes. "Then maybe we finally have everything we ever wanted." Obina looked toward the horizon, where the first light of dawn began to bloom. "No," he said softly. "We have everything we ever needed." The next morning, as the sun rose over Umuaku, people gathered again, not for gossip this time, but for gratitude. The Okoro Madu Foundation officially opened its first free school, named the Nenna Home for Hope. Children ran laughing through the gates, their uniforms crisp, their eyes shining with dreams. Standing before the crowd, Obina gave a short speech. His voice was steady, filled with quiet conviction. "We've learned that wealth means nothing without compassion. We built this not to erase the past, but to rewrite its ending." He turned to Nena, who stood beside him in a simple Ankara dress. "The strongest people are often the ones who suffered silently, but never stopped believing. My wife is one of them." The crowd cheered, and for the first time, Nena didn't shy away from their praise. She stepped forward, smiling nervously. "If I can say one thing," she said, "it's this. Don't stop being kind, just because the world doesn't notice. One small act can change everything." It changed mine. The applause that followed was thunderous. Children clapped, women wept, and men nodded with respect. As the sound faded, Obina took her hand again, whispering so only she could hear, "You see? You were never just a poor orphan girl. You were the blessing my world was waiting for." Tears shimmered in her eyes, but she smiled. "And you were the miracle I never saw coming." They stood together as the wind swept through the open field, carrying laughter, music, and the promise of new beginnings. For the first time, the story of Umuaku wasn't about tragedy. It was about transformation. If you've watched till this moment, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful African love stories that remind us that destiny doesn't always arrive with gold. It sometimes begins with a handful of groundnuts and a heart brave enough to care. Because sometimes the poorest girl in town ends up teaching the richest man what wealth really means. And that was Nena and Obina's story.